Gone Home is unlike anything else I've ever played. I was presented with stories rarely seen in video games. It is not over the top or shouting for your attention. It eases you in and compels you to keep going, all while toying with your emotions. Let's delve into what makes Gone Home so special.
So much has changed, even just since you've been away. We moved into this house. I'm at a new school. And my big sister being gone for a year doesn't make it any easier.
After arriving back from your time in Europe, you find your home devoid of family members. Your only initial clue is a note in the front door from your sister Sam. It reads, "Katie, I'm sorry I can't be there to see you, but it is impossible. Please, please don't go digging around trying to find out where I am. I don't want anyone to know. We'll see each other again someday. Don't be worried. I love you, Sam." With the house eerily quiet, you begin to piece together the events that unfolded over the last few months by finding journal entries, letters, newspaper clippings, among many other things.
I just stood there, wishing pretty hard for a rewind button. Because now maybe nobody knows my name, but they all know who I am. The Psycho House girl. Great.
Gone Home presents a few different storylines, all of which have their merits. First, you have the story of Sam, her new school and her new alternative friend Lonnie. There is also the story of your father Terence and his ailing writing career. Then there is the story of your mother Janice, whose career is brimming but her relationship with Terence is dwindling. Finally, there is the story about Terence's uncle Oscar, his troubled life and eventual death. All four of your family members have had their ups and downs. Piecing together the events that transpired in your home is fascinating, enthralling and incredibly interesting. The wide variety of emotions I felt while playing Gone Home was unexpected. Initially, while wandering around the empty house, I felt apprehensive. When I was walking down the first hallway and I heard a distant sound of chatter, that apprehension turned into fear. With rain pouring and thunder rumbling in the background, I slowly made my way to the source of the sound. It seemed like an empty room from the outside looking in. I stood at the edge of the door and peered inside. To my relief, it was just a room illuminated by a television that had been left on and nothing more. It was simple, but it was effective, and was a precursor of things to come. While uncovering Terence's story, I felt empathy for him when I discovered that he was dropped by his publisher, not to mention the fact that his own father didn't think much of his work either. This led to Terence cutting out the face of him on one of the paintings in anger. Terence's marriage is also on the rocks, and there is a growing emotional chasm between Terence and Janice. It also becomes apparent that the reason he is so distant from his wife is not because he no longer loves her, but because he was depressed about his failed writing career. Being reduced to writing reviews for music players is a far cry from what he desires. Finding letters that congratulated him initially on his first published book was exciting. Then finding later letters from the same publisher saying that his series isn't selling well and they aren't going to print any more of his books was miserable. When I found out that someone wanted to republish his fictional series, thus reinvigorating Terence's passion in writing, it was inspiring. His letter to the publisher, in which he stated that he wanted to continue the series, was one of the happiest moments in the game. I felt as if I had went on the ups and downs of his writing career with him. Finally, there was light at the end of the tunnel. Discovering that Janice is clearly having an affair filled me with frustration. Especially knowing the reason Terence is distant is because he has lost all hope in his career. Meanwhile, Janice is sending letters to her friend in which she raves about this new handsome Ranger Rick. Once I found the report in which Janice insists that Ranger Rick should stay at her park, it angered me. Not only was she not trying to end the affair, but she was deliberately extending it. We are given a glimmer of hope for the relationship of the parents towards the end of the game. Once Terence knows his books are going to be republished, he finds a rush of inspiration and starts writing fiction again. He also books a couple's retreat for them. This explains why the parents are not in the house when you come home. Terence has been uninspired for a while and not really paying any attention to his wife. Feeling helpless, Janice looked for attention elsewhere. Now that Terence has a burst of life again, there is a chance that their relationship can be salvaged, thus bringing the story of the parents to an optimistic end. What is great about the story of the parents is that we learn about both sides almost at the same time. Their story isn't over dramatic, it is grounded, and it is a situation that a lot of us can relate to, be it our own parents or being a part of it ourselves, making it more endearing.
Sometimes you just have to lie to Mom and Dad. Like when Lonnie asked me to see a band with her and stay over at her friend's place in the city after. That's a lie to Mom and Dad's situation.
The story of Oscar is a peculiar one. It is scarce on details as the only information about his life are very old and ragged letters, as well as a couple of newspaper clippings. The only facts we have is that Oscar died alone in the same house he spent his whole life. Said house was then left to Terence, which is why your family moved. We also know that Terence used to visit the house when he was younger because of the lines on a door frame measuring his height from the age of 6 to 12. We know that Oscar ran his own pharmacy for some time, which he sold in 1965 to avoid temptation, as he described it in a letter to his sister. Finally, we also know that Oscar did something that he deeply regrets, because in the letter to his sister he asked for one last opportunity for forgiveness. Once he didn't receive it, he spent the rest of his life alone and died at the age of 60. There is no definitive ending for Oscar's story. We can speculate, but that is all. What did Oscar do that filled him with regret for most of his life? What did he mean when he said temptation? Is there any chance that Oscar abused Terence, and that's why Terence was never around after the age of 12? Was Oscar addicted to pharmaceutical drugs? It is nice of a game to show us that some things are best left to the imagination. Leaving the story of Oscar open to interpretation is a storytelling technique that is used in many other mediums. Rarely is it done with the grace and subtlety shown in Gone Home.
You know that feeling where the first moment you see someone, it's like they have a big gold star around them, and you have to get to know them? Well, there's this girl. I think she's a senior. She's usually dressed kind of punk, but sometimes I see her in this, army uniform, and she's always drawing in this notebook, looking so intense. I had no idea how I would ever, have an excuse to talk to her.
The main story about the coming-of-age romance between Lonnie and Sam is one of the most beautiful love stories told in gaming, and it all starts out so innocent. Sam is the new girl at this school who thinks Lonnie is some incredible human being, and she is drawn to her. It isn't until later, once you open Sam's locker, that you realise Sam has been attracted to Lonnie all along. Everything that she said about and did with Lonnie before your discovery takes on a different angle. That gold star around Lonnie that Sam mentioned when she first saw her, that was Sam describing love at first sight. The fun the two of them have with each other is short-lived though, as they receive strange reactions at school from other students. Not to mention the fact that Sam's parents are not pleased with the revelation.
You and Lonnie are just good friends. You just haven't met the right boy. It's a phase. That's what I didn't see coming. That they wouldn't even respect me enough to believe me. Well, joke's on them, because they're in for one very long phase.
On top of all of this, both of them have very different aspirations in life. As you move throughout the house, you find numerous pieces of writing by Sam, with the quality of her writing improving as you find more and more recent examples. It is clear that she is talented. It is not surprising when she gets accepted into Reed College for creative writing. This is the path in life that makes the most sense for her. Lonnie, on the other hand, was always destined for the military. Sam mentioned that Lonnie would often come to school dressed in army gear, and has many badges for her efforts in training. Joining the military after high school was always the plan for Lonnie. what is heartbreaking is the fact that they find each other in the lead up to them heading in completely different directions in life. I was overcome with sadness when I hear the journal of Sam's, where she has the realisation that Lonnie is leaving for the military in June and she is going to Reed College. They will never see each other again. What is beautiful in terms of game design is that you're left to think about this for quite a while. After discovering Sam's journal entry about Lonnie leaving, it is set in stone. Future journal entries will mention that Lonnie's time in the band is temporary, and how they're just going to have fun while they can. To hammer home this point, the next few journal entries are filled with all the fun they have together. Getting lost on a school trip, making a comic together, and promoting the band. This makes Lonnie's inevitable departure even more despairing. Right up until the end, you're led to believe that all hope is lost for them. Not only that, but Sam is getting more and more depressed, and the journal entry under the stairs is haunting.
I realized they were all in the past, and there wouldn't be any more. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I cried, and she held me. She said she knew it was hard, but life would move on. I said I didn't want my life to keep moving without her. That's when she cried too. The sunset light in this house is the saddest thing I've ever seen. I just want to sleep. When I'm in the attic, it almost feels like Lonnie could still be here. She's just downstairs. I'm just waiting to hear her pull down the hatch and come running up. Maybe I'll go up to the attic and wait.
It was at this point that for the first time playing Gone Home, I found myself rushing through the house, desperately trying to check if she was still around. I made my way to the attic, and once I stood underneath the entrance, I froze. I thought back to all that Sam had went through, and I assumed the worst. By opening the attic, there is a possibility that I could find her cold, lifeless body. I didn't want that to be the final image that Gone Home would sear into my memory. Taking one final breath, I opened the attic, made my way up the steps, and found an empty sleeping bag with a drawing and the most wonderful journal entry of the entire game.
Oh my god. Katie, I fell asleep in the attic, in Lonnie and my old spot, and I missed the first 2 calls. I just barely caught the third one before the machine got it. And it was Lonnie, on a payphone. She'd been on the bus to basic, and she said she couldn't think of anything but me and us, and that she couldn't go through with it, with the army and being apart and all of it. And so she got off the bus in Salem. She said, "Sam, I want you to pack up everything you can and get in your car and come find me. And let's just drive until we find somewhere for us." And she asked me if I could do that. And I said yes. Yes.
Gone Home had done it. I was fully invested in the characters, especially Sam. For someone who was never seen in person, she is more captivating, more interesting, and more likeable than many others that spend the entire game beside you. After hearing the journal entry under the stairs, I actually whimpered out loud. That is the moment I realised that Gone Home had me. That is the moment I realised how much I cared. That is the moment I realised that Gone Home is more than deserving of my appreciation.